Okay.
Oh boy,
So,
after a lot of technical difficulties for about an hour, basically, now we can
yeah.
start our show.
Da da da. So
And
what
today's
can I
movie
say?
is The Monster Club
The Monster Club.
from 1981. I think it's 81, isn't it?
Yeah, 81. This movie, I remember seeing it a while ago.
You did
And,
see this before,
yeah,
okay.
I've seen it before. This had the feeling of an earlier,
Yep.
like around the time they did the Corman did the those Poe movies that were kind of on the funny side.
For me, it had the feeling of like in the '70s, Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, all those anthology movies. Because the guy who produced this,
Mm,
Subotsky, he was the guy who did Amicus. He's the guy, in the '60s he did oh God, there was the anthology movies, that Dr. Terror's House of Horrors or whatever. It's in the same
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
the
league
same.
as those.
Yeah, yeah. It was. It's an anthology movie, and it did have a lot of that feeling, but it also had that comedic element.
Yeah, and it
That
had that '80s feel to it with the band, the new wave bands, and all that stuff.
yeah. It's funny. I just before I watched this, I was watching Dr. Terry's House of Horrors.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
And I forgot about this. I don't know if I have it anymore or not. But this was made into a comic book, and I had the
Yeah, I heard
comic book.
that.
I
Yeah.
have had it. It was drawn by John Bolton, and I completely didn't make the connection until I watched the movie, and I
Right.
saw like the guy at the beginning. I go, that guy looks familiar. The first
Yeah.
story, and then towards
Yeah.
the end of the movie, there's a section where like she's explaining to the Stuart Whitman about the ghouls, and you
Yeah.
see comic book drawings. I'm going like, yeah, that's that comic book. I don't know if I have it anymore, but I
Right.
remember it. It
Right.
was very good too. John Bolton was a very good British artist. He did a lot of
Yeah.
stuff for he did stuff for Marvel too, Red Sonja and Conan and stuff like that. But
Yeah. Didn't. Let's see. Didn't he? What's that? There's some UK book that what's his
Warrior,
name's in. Yeah. There's
Warrior,
another one. I'm Judge Dredd. I think he may have worked on
he
some
may
stuff. I'm not
have.
sure.
A lot of people work for Judge Dredd. He may have worked for Judge
Yeah. Well,
Dredd. I'm
that's
not
true.
sure.
And I forget the name of the magazine it appeared in. 21.
2000 AD.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
2000 AD. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Oh, anyway, this is kind of like it kind of feels like it wasn't because I think they did more movies. But
Mhm.
it feels like the end of the line for a lot of the horror genre because you could see like Price and Carradine are pretty old and
Yeah.
they did a movie which I don't know if it's before this or after this. It was called House of Long Shadows and it had Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, John Carradine, and I think Price. But Cushing and Lee turned down this movie.
Yeah, I heard. I mean, I think Lee, upon hearing the title, he's like,
Yeah,
"No, no, no, thanks."
of course he went on to make other dumb movies, but he didn't do this one. I was like, okay. But Price and Carradine are fine.
Yeah, they're
They're
fine.
good, and they have a nice framing sequence, but it's very
Right.
campy in a way.
Yeah.
You
House
know.
of Long Shadows was in '83.
Oh, so it was after this. I think Desi Arnaz Jr. might be in that one.
Yeah. Yeah, he's in there too.
Is Vincent Price, Carradine, Cushing, and Lee, or in Long
Yeah,
Shadows?
Price, Lee, Cushing, and Carradine, and Desi Arnaz Jr.
Yeah,
Standout star.
cool. On the conga drums. Anyway.
Babaloo.
Anyway, yeah, these anthology movies are like the first one I ever saw was Tales from the Crypt because it played in
Mhm.
my local theater. It was based on comic books. Before I saw Tales from the Crypt in '70 whatever 2, maybe 3. I don't
Mhm.
remember. I'd heard about EC Comics, but I've never read them. And
Right.
when I was reading the Warren books, Creepy and Eerie, they always referred to EC. And then
Yeah.
as I started like picking up like Monster Times magazine occasionally when I was at the drugstore,
Mhm.
they were talking about the ECs and they showed, and then they came out with a book,
Yeah.
which I couldn't afford because it was $20 back then
Yeah.
of the stories.
Yeah.
And I was
I
like,
think
oh,
now
so
they're
this
like.
is what this is. And I saw the movie again. This theater was a block away from my house, and the movie I thought was great. So that's the first one of these kind of movies I saw, and it was Subotsky producing it. But the stories were adapted from the comic books. I can't remember if Robert Bloch was adapted them or not, but I'm sure he worked on it because he did a lot of that stuff, you know. So, but yeah, this is like 3 stories only. But I mean, it's got like Vincent Price, Peter Cushing, Simon Ward, Britt Eklund, Richard Johnson, Donald Pleasance, Patrick McGee, Stuart Whitman, and maybe I'm forgetting somebody else, but that's a pretty good cast.
Yeah, there were also some famous. Britt Eklund was in it, but Britt Eklund, Simon Ward, he's well known in England. So is
Patrick McGee, you know. Donald Pleasance, you know, all those guys.
Yeah.
And they all did anthology movies. All of them did, except for maybe Simon Ward. He might have. I don't remember. But Britt Eklund was in Asylum. Patrick McGee was in Asylum. Whatchamacallit? Stuart Whitman, maybe not. Carradine, I'm not sure if he was in one of these anthology movies or not, but Pleasance was. They're all like, you know, they're all great actors, and you know, this was made in England, wasn't it? It had to have been made in England.
It was made in England. He's been in some interesting movies. He was in Frankenstein.
Pleasance was in Halloween.
Yeah, Simon Ward was in Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed.
Oh, that's right, from the 60s with Peter Cushing. Yeah.
He's in Bram Stoker's Dracula with Jack Palance. Holocaust 2000. I haven't heard of that movie.
Sounds like a end of the world movie or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so he's dipped his toe into.
He did all kinds of movies. I can't remember. I know his face. He reminds me of another actor from that era called John Mulder Brown. So they're kind of like in the same mold. And maybe what was that guy that was? There was the other guy. I can't remember. Another blonde actor from Britain that was doing movies. I can't remember his name now, but he's really famous. Anyway. So this is an anthology.
I remember him because my sister had a mad crush on him. So every time.
Who, Simon Ward?
Yeah. So she likes those sort of limp, pale.
Like a David Bowie type or something?
No, not David Bowie. More. Because David Bowie was a little out there for.
He's a little flamboyant, yeah.
Yeah, but she liked the more. Like the lead singer of they sang that song "I Want You to Want Me." What the hell are they called?
Oh, you mean Robin Zander from Cheap Trick?
Yeah, Cheap Trick. That's it. Yeah, she had a mad crush on Robin Zander. She likes those blonde guys. Well, that's what her ex-husband was too. Her ex-husband was a pale British guy.
Really? Wow. She went out and sought one out. Huh? She found a Brit.
She did.
Oh, who's that other blonde actor from the same type? Michael York. York.
Yeah. Michael York.
That was another guy.
Yeah.
Similar type.
Yeah.
You know, but anyway, so basically this movie is framed by the beginning of it is what? John Carradine is a writer.
Yeah, and actually there's a real writer that he's
R. Chetwynd something or other.
Yeah. R. Chetwynd-Hayes. What a name. R. Chetwynd-Hayes. He didn't like the movie so much.
He didn't like it, no.
Except for the last one, which is a little more scary and spooky, less comedic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So he's walking by a bookstore. He sees his books in the window. It's late at night, and Vincent Price, as he walks past, and Vincent Price comes out of an alley and says, "Please, I haven't eaten in so long." And he's like, "Oh, do you need money?" He says, "No money for food." He says, "Oh no, I can't keep food down." He says, "Well, what can I do to help you?" Then Vincent Price sort of reaches over and bites him on the neck. And then he finds out who he is by looking through his wallet, and he goes, "Oh, the famous writer, and oh, sir, I'm so glad that your blood tasted wonderful. It was very and John Carradine's looking all worried, and he's like, "Oh no, don't worry, I didn't bite too deep, so you're not going to change." Apparently, their motto is "Feed without greed."
Yes. It's all goofiness.
So then he wants to repay him, and John Carradine's like, "What? You want more blood?" He's like, "No, I'll take you to the club where we all hang out."
We're all the monster club.
Yeah, the monster club. So they get there.
It's basically like a bunch of people in goofy masks.
Yeah, that must have been an easy casting call. Yeah, so it looked like all those masks you would see in the back of Creepy and Eerie you could buy for a lot of money.
Yeah, Don Post masks.
Yeah, and they're all there doing, dancing, and there's some guy playing music, and
well, the last band that played music, I didn't recognize them at first because I didn't like the song.
Right.
But then when I looked at the credits, I said The Pretty Things, and I go, The Pretty Things, they've been around since the 60s.
Wow.
And yeah, that was the last band, and The Pretty Things have a connection to the Rolling Stones, because I think one of the guys in that band was in the Stones and left to form his own band. So
wow.
That's an old band, but they're doing some kind of reggae thing or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they were singing about the Monster Club.
And the guy with the curly hair who sang, B.A. Robertson, he had a solo career. I'm not familiar with much of his music, but he did have a career. He did have recordings, and he had probably some hits in England, but it wasn't their finest moments.
Oh.
Let's put it that way. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
So then Price and Carradine are talking, and Price starts talking about all these types of monsters.
Yeah, the monster genealogy. And you have the
it was silly.
The main monsters was a vampire, werewolf, and a ghoul. Vampires suck, werewolves bite, and ghouls tear. Something like that.
Yeah.
Then it says if a werewolf marries a vampire, you get a were-vamp. If a vampire marries a ghoul, you get a were-goo. And then if a were-goo marries a vamp, and there's shaddicks and mucklucks and glockenspiels and all this.
Yeah, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and then he finally gets down to Shadrock or Shamrock? No. What is it?
Shadmock.
Shadmock. And all they do is whistle. And John Carradine's like, just whistle? He says, oh, but when they whistle, oh, it's terrifying.
So, ooh, boys and girls, it's terrifying.
So then it goes to the story of the Shadmock. You see, this is the one.
Shadmock's kind of like a rich guy, but he's kind of sad,
Yeah.
He's kind of depressing.
So he lives alone.
He looks like a goth, actually.
Yeah, he's got his hair greased back and parted in the middle. He looks like somebody you would see in a Charles Addams cartoon.
He could be like a bass player for the Cure or something. He had that kind of look to him.
Yeah, so he's all ghoulish. He's got pale face, and his eyes are dark around them, and hair parted in the middle and greased back. So this girl and this guy, they're
Simon Ward.
I forget the girl's name.
I don't remember her from it, but she probably did on British television. I don't remember her name.
I think it's Barbara Kellerman.
Okay.
Yeah, but I've seen her around. But yeah, I don't know if she's famous. So he's looking for a place to rob via job or something. So they find the job in the paper that this guy needs a secretary to catalog all his art objects. So she goes there, and the house is all dark and creepy, and it's filled with all sorts of obscure statues and paintings and knickknacks.
It's like a museum.
Yeah. So then, she's saying like, I don't like to, it's hard for me to hire people because I'm kind of a lonely kind of guy. And then he sort of turns around, and you sort of see him lit up from beneath, and he looks all creepy and weird. She's spooked. She runs away, and then she's back at the apartment with her boyfriend. He's like, so he didn't want you? She says, no, he wanted me, and I did fine, but just too creepy. I can't stand him. So he goes, well, this is a lot of stuff. So it sounds like you had a lot of good stuff. So why don't you just go back to him? So she goes back, and he's surprised, and then starts cataloging things. And she's like, "Why don't you put some of this stuff in a bank?" Or because I'd have to be out amongst people and all the noise, and he's all spooky and stuff. So that he's doing her job, and she sees him buy this expensive ring that's like 3,000 years old, and
from some guy walks in, looks like some ne'er do well or something. I don't know.
So he's telling her about the ring, and she sees that he has a safe with a lot of money in it. And then he's out, and they're doing their stuff, and then he's out feeding the birds, and he tells her, "Oh, the birds are my only friends,"
and there's this cat.
Yeah, then it's this cat eyeing the birds. So she's inside cataloging, and he's outside with his bird friends. And he sees the cat had killed one of the birds, so he gets all freaked out. And then you see him whistle.
So silly.
I know. She hears the whistle, and she comes running out and looking around. And he comes in, he's all weeping and crying and freaking out. She goes out, and she sees like a big pile of liquid, gooey ash and whatnot in the shape of a cat. So then, she's coming along, and he surprises her with flowers, and he says, "Oh, you're so beautiful. You should always be surrounded by flowers." And then she walks in, and the whole place is surrounded by flowers and stuff. Then he asks her if she will marry him. And she's like, "Oh, I don't know." And then back home, she's like there crying. "I gotta quit this. I can't do it." The boyfriend's like, "Oh, but you have to. This stuff is great. We'll have to melt some of it down, but get the stuff in the safe. It's easier to use, and we can get a lot of money for it and stuff."
Meanwhile, she could have hidden artifacts in her purse without having to go into the safe.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Walk away with them easily. She's cataloging the things.
Exactly. So she goes back, and she says, "I'll marry you," and he says, "Oh, great, wonderful." And then, but I need to have the ring that you bought. It's like it's got a jewel in the center,
engagement ring or something,
it's got snakes all around it.
Yeah.
So she watches him as he opens the safe and remembers the combination. And then he says, "Oh, we're going to have a party. I'll invite all my relatives, but it'll have to be masked because my relatives are kind of hard to take." So then it's the night of the ball. She's all dressed up and puts on her mask, and then he introduces her to his uncle. And everybody's wearing the same mask. So they start dancing, and she starts dancing with the uncle, and then other people start dancing with her too. They sort of, it's one of those like fast dance. Everybody's dancing fast, and everything's getting dizzy for her. And she finally breaks away, and then she slips away into his study where the safe is. And she opens up the safe, and she grabs money and stuff. And she turns around, and he's there, and he goes, I don't care about the money. You can take that and give it to whoever you want. Just as long as you'll marry me." And she's like, "I could never marry you." And she's like, "You're so ugly." And he's like, "No, don't say that." And she's like, "Oh my God, you're hideous." So then he whistles, and then the camera comes up really close to his lips until.
Right.
Get out of focus.
And the volume goes up real high in his death whistle.
So then Simon Ward's at his place, and
he comes back home.
Yeah, he hears her coming back home, and she's wearing this sort of long cape with the hood covering her face. She comes in and walks over to the corner of the room, and he's like, "So, did you get it? Did you get it? Did you get anything? Did you?" And she says, "What is it? Could you still love me?" Or so, something like that. And then she lifts the cape off and turns around, and the front of her dress is all splotched and burned. And like her arms,
face is all burned off.
In pulpy and whatever. And it sounds almost like a recording. You can still love me. You can still love me. And he's like,
Yeah,
he
right,
freaks
right.
out, and he goes catatonic and stuff.
And then the end, and then we come back to the Monster Club, and they start talking about other monsters. But in the meantime, we get a song from, I forgot what the name of the band was, some new wave band or something.
And that's some
the first band. I can't remember what they were called, but it was an average song. It wasn't anything great.
Yeah, I think that might have been the Viewers.
Probably, because there was B.A. Robertson was the other. And then there was a female, and the Pretty Things were at the end.
Yeah. And when there was a stripper scene in there, which we'll get
to.
to.
But that turns into like a cartoon.
Yeah, and that was done by the rock band Night. And then, I think what you said, the Pretty Things were the last band.
They were the last ones. Yeah. Well, you can see their name on their drum kit.
Okay. So the next one, let me see, let me get my notes.
What was the name of the monster? Well, it was a vampire, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a vampire.
One? Richard Johnson playing the vampire. I forgot to mention Richard Johnson. He was in a lot of movies.
Yeah. So what it is after the band plays, then they introduce the vampire film producer.
That's right. And he's telling the story.
John Carradine goes, a vampire film producer? And Vincent Price goes, aren't they all?
Yeah, right.
So the guy comes out and he says he's releasing a new film, this sort of autobiographical based on his childhood. And then you see this kid. He's lonely and shy, and he lives in this sort of large mansion-style house, but it's
and he's got a hot mom and brick at London.
Yeah. And she's like, remember, don't talk to strangers and go to school. And so he goes to school. You can see him dreading going to school. And
his dad's like, Dad, why do you sleep all day and go out at night? He goes, well, Dad works at night, son. So
yeah. So, well, you see him. He gets up out of a coffin and comes upstairs and stuff.
The kid doesn't see it though. I don't.
No, the kid though. The audience sees it. So then the kid, and he's playing with the kid with whatever, and the wife goes, oh, it's about time you started work because the Piccadilly scene is letting out of the theaters or whatever. So he goes, all right, and he's all dressed up in like a tuxedo style thing, a suit and stuff. So he puts on his top hat and stuff, and the kid goes, Dad, are you a butcher? And he goes, oh, no, I'm not a butcher. And he says, well, what do you do? He says, well, I'm in a service where I lighten people's loads, and in return I get some nutritional value from that. So then he goes out, and the kid's, all like waves to his dad goodbye through the window, and he's all dejected.
He's like a skinny kind of,
it's a
wimpy
skinny
little kid.
Yeah, skinny, nerdy little kid, very shy and stuff. So at school the next day, all the kids are in a big group, and they're jumping over a puddle, and then see a bunch of boys making fun of him. And they said, but you can't jump over the puddle. So he tries to jump over the puddle, and he gets in, and he lands in the puddle, splashes his leg, and he's all dejected and stuff. And in the meantime, you see Donald Pleasence sort of peeking over her head.
He's got like a collar that makes him look like a priest or something.
Yeah, or a vicar or something like that. So he's looking over the hedge, and he's watching.
It kind of has the feeling of a child molester or something.
Yes.
I mean, really.
Creepy. So then the kid comes home, and he's telling his mom what happened, and she's like, oh, well, don't worry, you're better than them because your dad was nobility. He had to leave Europe. He was a count, which makes me a countess, and you're a viscount.
A viscount or something.
And he goes, oh. So then the next day at school, the wimpy kid is yelling at the other kids for making fun of him. He's saying, I'm better than you. I'm a viscount. And then, some of the bully kids come over. Oh, pardon me, my lord, and stuff. So then they push him against a fence, and they're going to beat him up. And then Donald Pleasence comes along. What's going on here, children? And they all run away. And he's talking to the kid and asking about his father and stuff. And the kid says, oh, my dad sleeps all day in the cellar and stuff. And he goes, oh, you never see him? No, I never do. Well, maybe one day if you go down into the cellar, he'll wake up early and play with you. And then Donald Pleasance looks to to this black van, and there's other guys dressed just like him in black suits.
And they got little violin cases.
And they got violin cases. And earlier on, before the father had left for work, he warned his kid, "Oh, always beware of men carrying violin cases." So then, the kid is there doing something. The mom goes out shopping, and Donald Pleasance and the other men are like watching. And so while the mom's out shopping, the kid gets up and he walks down into the cellar, and there's these big red curtains covering an alcove. So he opens that up. He goes in to look in, and he sees a coffin there. So he peeks in and he sees his father lying there, and he freaks out. He runs upstairs, and then there's a knock on the door, and Donald Pleasance comes in with the other guys, and he says, "Oh, he says, you can't come in. You have to stay out." And he says, "Where's your father?" Oh, and his father. The kid said his father sleeps in the cellar. So it's the Bliney group or something like that. So the three of them go down. The three vampire hunters. That's what they are. They go downstairs, and they see the father. And then Donald Pleasance, or one of the guys, opens up one of the violin cases. It's got a stake and a hammer. So Donald Pleasance,
they're like, "Hurry up because it's getting dark."
Yeah. So Donald Pleasance is about to hammer the stake in, and Britt Eklund walks down and she screams, which stops him for a moment. And then he turns around and he hammers the stake into the guy's chest, and the actor goes. And then Donald Pleasance sort of looks up at looks away, exposing his neck, and then the vampire sort of rises up and bites him in the neck, and then falls back down dead.
Now, now Donald Pleasance thinks he's a vampire.
He is.
Now.
He says, you gotta get an ambulance, get me to the hospital. And Britt Eklund says, "Oh no, he since he had already fed the night before, when he bit you, he gave you the full dose of the vampire virus, so you're a vampire now. So then the other and your men will have to stake you too." And he's like, "But you can't do that. I'm the most famous vampire hunter around." And they're like,
grows fangs.
Yeah. He said it's only fitting that we do this, that we're the ones who stake you, because that's what we do. So Donald Pleasance is trying to avoid him. So yeah, and in the meantime he had grown fangs.
Yeah, you were a quick vampire.
Yeah, right. So he's trying to avoid him, so that he trips over something, and they finally stake him, and then they carry him upstairs in the stretcher and put him in the back of the black van and drive away. And then Britt Eklund and the boy had followed him up, and they're all like sad. So they go down. They both go downstairs again to the cellar, to where the father is in his coffin, and he suddenly sits up, and the mother and the son are both surprised, and he goes, "Oh, it's a good thing I always sleep with a stake-proof vest."
Yeah, right.
Steak out.
We got some ketchup.
Yeah, and it's loaded with ketchup and stuff. So everybody's happy and stuff, and he goes over and he hugs his wife and his kids, and he's like something like, "Oh, now we're one big happy family," something like that. That was goofy.
Yeah, it was. Goofy. It was a silly ending, but whatever. You know, the whole movie's goofy.
So then they have another music
number from the redheaded woman, right?
Yeah. So she's they have a woman singing, and
no, I think that's it's got to be the redheaded lady.
Yeah, it's the red. Yeah. So she's singing, and after the song ends, then another thing comes up, and a stripper comes out, and she's, it's da da da, whatever the music was. So she turns
into animation.
Yeah, she starts taking off her clothes, and then she's in like her bra and panties, and then the house lights go out, and then a big doorway light comes on behind her, so she's in silhouette, but it's an animation. So she starts taking off her skin and revealing her skeleton, and that's how it ends. And everybody's clapping, ooh, and there's one of the monsters masks. They had three sets of eyes, and as he's watching this, the bottom set of eyes, or the top, I don't know, pop out to
Yeah,
look
right.
like in the cartoons. So then John Carradine is he's asking about, because there's a family
Yeah, the
genealogy
family tree. Yeah.
tree of different monsters. So he goes, that woman on the bottom, she looks human. He says, well, she's a humgoo. She's
Humgoo.
half human, half ghoul. He said, oh, I heard. And he said, what weird power do they have? He says, oh, they don't have any power except for a taste for carrion.
Yeah.
But I did hear a weird story. So he starts telling the story, and then you see this sort of woman in a sort of sheer diaphanous gown holding a
Like a
pen.
vampire lady walking down the
Yeah,
stairs.
she's walking down the stairs, and she goes over to the coffin, and suddenly this vampire's hand goes up, and she goes, and then you hear cut, and it's Stuart Whitman. He's the director of a movie, a horror movie, and he's all like, you know, I guess what they think of as a typical American brash and curt and stuff. We need this. So then, all right, this is a wrap. We'll have to fix it in editing and stuff. So then this guy walks in with some photos and maps, and he says, "Oh, I scouted out the next location for the stuff." And he's looking, and he says, "You're not going to find any creepy towns, in areas where they have 5 stars hotel. I'll go out on the weekend and look myself." So then you see him driving down the English road, and he pulls over, and he sees this sign for this town. I guess Laughlin it's
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those British or weird English words that have a bunch of vowels, and you don't know if they're pronounced as an F or a silent or whatever. So he drives down, and it's this creepy, and he drives over a bridge, and there's a mist that he has
Yeah,
to
like a
drive
mist,
through.
almost like clouds and gray
It,
and.
so once he gets through that, he's in this creepy little town, and there's no one around. So then he goes into the inn, and he's like, "Hello, hello, you." Hello. And then Patrick McGee comes out, and he's all like disheveled, and his clothes are all dirty.
Gray and dour looking
Yeah.
and.
And he says, this is a perfect town. I want to film my movie here. Who do I call?" And McGee goes, "There's no phone here." So he goes, "Oh, well, who's in charge here?" It says, "The elders, and they come at night." He says, "Oh, well, I'm okay, so, all right, so we'll come back at night. And where's the nearest hotel?" And it's like, "No hotel," or, "No, you can't leave," something like that. And he says, "Oh, I gotta leave." So he turns around, and suddenly the whole room is filled with these people and all this sort of dusty,
Yeah, it looked like homeless,
disheveled
crazy
clothes.
people.
Yeah. So he goes out, and they're all crowding around him. So he goes out into the car, to his car, and he tries to start. It won't start. And then he opens up the back, and he sees that his motor's been tampered with. So he says, "All right, where's the garage?" He says, "No garage." And he says, "All right, well, where's the nearest town?" And he says, "No, you have to stay here." And suddenly all the townspeople start grabbing him and pulling at him,
Yeah.
and they're bringing him towards the house that he was first in with McGee, and then they sort of like pushing him upstairs, and in the course of doing that, they take off his jacket, and then McGee puts it on, and then he gets shoved into a room upstairs, and he closes the door, and he's waiting, looking around, He looked out the window, and he sees a churchyard across the way, and by the side of the churchyard, there's a graveyard with graves that have been dug up and empty coffins. And suddenly, I don't know if she knocks, but she comes in. This girl comes in.
Yeah, the young girl, the daughter or whatever.
Right, and she has
who has a weird way of speaking too. She's like, I this and I that.
Yeah, it's almost like she's speaking as they would in the 1800s or something like that.
Yeah, right.
A lot of ye's and these and stuff. So she gives him rabbit stew. And she says,
supposedly.
Oh, well, yeah. And
she talks about digging up boxes, and we're running out of boxes, and she means graves and stuff. Yeah.
And then she says, "Well, where'd you get your clothes?" He says, "Oh, we find them in the boxes." And then she says, "With the boxes, we make all our furniture from and stuff." So then she says, "But we don't have clothes like you. They're fine clothes and stuff." And says, "Well, I need to get to the big city." And she's like, "Oh, the city. If you go, will you take me?" He's like, I'll take you and stuff, but we have to get out of here. He says, "Well, we can't do it. We have to wait a bit." She says, "Well, I got to get out of this room." She's like, "If you go to the church yard across the way, they can't go on consecrated ground. Ground. So he gets down and he goes to the church, and some of them
with the girl, right?
Not yet. No, she comes later.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
So he goes in, and I think some of them.
He has to fight through some of them to get there.
So he gets there, and they don't go. They can't cross the gate because it's the start of the graveyard in the church. So he's in there, and he finds an old book, like a diary of the priest who was there. And that's when
you see the comic book page.
Right, that's when you see. So the comic book pages are the flashback story. So it turns out this old village in 1800s, they found a ghoul who was sort of starving and frail, and the townspeople wanted to kill it, but he took it in and nursed it back to health. And then one day it disappeared from his house, and he went out and he found it eating. It dug up one of the graves and was eating
a corpse.
Which, if you think of it, if they can't go on consecrated ground, how were they able to go into the churchyard?
No.
And eat the corpses. So anyway, that's where you find out that the ghouls, and after that it signaled to its other ghouls to come, and then the ghouls sort of took over the town and mated with the humans. And so they still, they're like they're humgoos. They're half ghouls and half humans.
Yeah, they're basically like humans that are like insane.
Yeah.
Basically.
So the girl is running to get to the
Stuart Whitman.
Yeah, to Stuart Whitman on the consecrated ground, and so
because I guess she wasn't a hum ghoul, even though they named her a hum ghoul. She wasn't one because she could go on consecrated ground and she was fine.
Right. So I'm not sure. That one was kind of vague.
Yeah, even though in the picture they said they said this is a hum ghoul. She wasn't all gray and withered and like
she wasn't like them. Yeah. So anyway, she's able. They're attacking her and they're stopping her, and then Stuart Whitman comes out with a cross on a pole, and he's able to scare off the ghouls, and then and Stuart Whitman and the girl, they start running to escape. And
they go in the church, and then the ghouls start throwing rocks through the windows.
Through the window, yeah. So then he comes out again with the cross on the stick.
And they get out.
And they get out. And they're running through the woods, and the ghouls are running after them. And then they
throwing rocks at them and stuff.
They're coming to the mist, and apparently the mist was created by the elders to, keep people out and ghouls in or something. I don't know.
Something.
So they're almost there, and then one of the ghouls throws a rock, hits the girl on the back of the head, and so she
That's
dies.
a hell of a hit,
Yeah. So she dies. So then Stuart Whitman runs.
He's running.
Yeah, he runs through the mist, and he gets to the highway, and he sees a cop car coming up, and he's waving to them, and he says, "Yo, you gotta take me to the police station. There's this crazy village there, and then they killed the girl and stuff." And then the cops are sort of blasé about it, and they get him in the car. So then they start down the road
And they
towards
make like a U-turn.
towards the village. And he says, "No, no, no, you're going the wrong way. This is the way towards the village." And they look at him like, "We know, sir." And then he drives past the girl, and he says, "Oh, see, that's the dead girl." And then they're pulling up. Say, "Oh, we know, sir. We're the police guy. We're the police escort. We always give
For
the
the
elders police escort with the food truck, which you assume then is filled with dead bodies." So he's like, "Right, what?" He's all shocked and stuff. So then they stop, and you see the whole townspeople there. And then the two cops turn around, and they smile, and they both got pointed teeth, which were really bad plastic teeth.
Sure.
And he's like, "Ah!" He screams. And then it's back to Vincent Price and John Carradine.
And then they're just talking, and like they're talking about all the monsters and all that stuff. And
Right.
Price goes on a big old soliloquy about, well, there are monsters here, but humans have like killed 150 million and tortured, and and so who's the real monster? Basically, he went on like a little semi-political tirade there at the end.
So then he wants, and because of that, he wants to make John Carradine
a member
of the Monster Club.
Yeah, they're going like, well, he's not a monster, and you go, wait a minute, the humans have done, and they go, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then music starts up.
And that's the pretty things.
And then everybody starts dancing again, and then you see Vincent Price trying to dance because he's old.
And John Carradine with his messed up knuckles and fingers.
John Carradine trying to move. It's just and the end.
Carradine with his arthritic hands that are really horrible, like moving him around, and I'm like,
Yeah, because his fingers.
Yeah, and then the end, and that's where it goes to that last at the end, that picture in the back. That was the cover of the comic book.
Oh, was it really? Oh, cool.
That was the cover of the comic. That's why I recognized it. Oh yeah, I know. Now I know that comic book. Because that guy at the beginning, the guy at the beginning, the whistling guy.
Yeah.
When I saw his face, that's when it hit me. I go, that's the comic book from that John Bolton did. And I hope I still have it. I don't know. Cool. And I was like, oh, this is, and then I went, oh, this is based on the comic. That's the comic book. The comic book. Well, I don't know if it was the comic book came after. It probably did, but the movie feels like a comic book.
Yeah, it does. I think they tried to use the comic as a.
It was an adaptation.
Tool. I think also because after this was filmed, it sat in the editing room or whatever, wherever they keep movies, for about a year or so.
So this was filmed in what, 79 or 80?
Probably
or
end of 79, beginning of 80.
Okay, because it came out in 81, so maybe yeah.
So
I mean, it's a fun, silly movie if that's what you like. It's campy,
right?
It's got the best thing about this movie for me. It's got cool people, and the stories are simple.
Yeah.
They're easy to follow. They're not all these intricate, like we got to add some padding and storylines. They're just bare bones story. The endings are kind of cheesy, but if you take it as a comic book, it works.
If this was done as a comic book,
it was
like an EC, but I mean instead of a film. But yeah, I'm sure that if you read it as the comic
it's
probably
better. It's better read as a comic book. I read the comic book.
Yeah.
I didn't remember it.
Right.
Yeah, it works. It works just as well as a comic book.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie to me, the comic book was great because it's got nice art and the stories are comic booky, but it's the actors that made this movie for me.
Yeah, definitely.
And this was the last production for Milton Subotsky, and it was also the last film Roy Ward Baker directed from Hammer. So it's kind of like, it really is an end of an era.
Exactly.
In a way, even though those guys kept going on for a little while longer. They were very old. You can see Price is very old, and he still was able to move around. I mean, it was this before Thriller? I may have been before Thriller.
Probably. Yeah, because I think in Thriller he was really...
Was Thriller like 1983 or something like that? And this was 81? Yeah, it's probably before Thriller.
Yeah, let me see.
So Price still had his voice, and he still had a presence, and Carradine, looked pretty old and whatever, but it would have been cool to have. It would have been cool to have had Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing in the movie too. If they would have had those guys added to the movies, man, this movie would have been way better.
Yeah, it would have been. And if they took out the music too, it would have been.
Yeah,
better.
the music was unnecessary.
Yeah, it was an unnecessary part. It says here, before they started filming the movie, the script was used to create a comic
book. Oh, okay.
And then they used it as a promotional tool.
Oh, interesting.
And then it was later reprinted in Halls of Horror, issue number 25 and 26.
It was reprinted as a normal comic book in the United States, I believe.
Yeah.
I believe.
So,
but yeah, I could have seen. It would have been great to have Christopher Lee as the vampire in the second story. Richard Johnson was fine. I mean, he was great, but Christopher Lee would have been fantastic.
Yeah,
exactly. And it would have been great. I mean, Patrick McGee was great, but like Peter Cushing as the ghoul at the end or something.
That would have been because he had. There's something about Lee and Cushing, the way they acted on screen. Now, McGee's a good actor.
McGee. The actors are fine. McGee's great. He's got that mean-looking face and that voice, that nasty voice, and he was great in movies. He was a great bad guy and the whole nine. So I'm not putting him down. When I heard that those other two turned it down, I was like, that's kind of sad.
Yeah.
It would have been a nice ending of Hammer,
Yeah. Well, this wasn't Hammer. Well, kind of. Yeah.
Was it Amicus or
no?
It was an independent production.
Were Amicus? You did stuff with Amicus, but it was distributed by ITC.
ITC was the British, yeah.
And the production company was Chips Productions and Sword and Sorcery Productions.
Yeah.
Okay.
It really is. It really is a fun movie if you like this kind of stuff.
Yeah, as long as you're not looking for a real serious.
I mean, it's a horror movie. You're not really. Nobody's ever looking for anything real serious in a horror movie, but it's definitely campy.
Yeah,
it's definitely campy.
Yeah, it's a
and
fun
movie. The stories
movie.
are kind of lightweight in a way.
Yeah, it's kind of a movie.
They work.
You'd go if you go into the drive-in. And you bring in your girlfriend or a bunch of friends, you would like goofing and stuff. You would watch this.
I've never seen it before, believe it or not. This is
really?
The first time. I'm glad I saw it. I was never seen it before.
Yeah.
I watched it this morning. I think YouTube had it free with ads, so it was a nice, it was a very nice copy of it on YouTube. It was like, it would look really sharp, so it's worth watching, with their commercial interruptions and,
Yeah.
This is like these guys kind of like not their last hurrah, but getting close to it and giving it. And these guys, the thing about these actors is like these were working actors. These guys, I don't know if they were millionaires or not. They may have been, but they weren't like today's stars. They would do whatever it took. A job is a job.
Yeah, exactly. So Vincent Price died in '93.
So he lasted another 13 years.
So he was in his late 60s, wait.
No, really? Price looked like he was in his 70s in this.
Yeah, he probably would have been in his 70s. And
Carradine looked like he was in his 70s or early 80s.
Yeah, Carradine died in '88 at 82.
Yeah.
So he was in his late 70s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good stuff.
It was fun. It was. I mean, it's funny. This is the only of all the movies we watched. This was the only one my wife watched with me. She's not a horror movie fan.
Did she like it?
Yeah, she actually did.
Cool.
It was kind of, and that's it. It kind of, because of it was a bit campy and not gory at all. It could sort of appeal to more people who weren't horror movie fans.
Cool.
So
yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know cool, man.
I don't know how well it did in the theaters, but
I remember it. I remember it on video. I remember like the comic book. I'm sure it played in theaters here.
Yeah. It says the movie was a critical and commercial failure. Yeah, but that time the culture had taken a slightly different swing. This probably would have been really big if it came out in the late '60s, early '70s.
Yeah, in the '70s. Yeah.
Yeah, you know it
would have
did
been
have
different
that
too.
feel.
It would have had a different feel to it, I think.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Well, the music definitely would have been different. It would have been like rock bands instead of new wave bands.
Yeah, I could see this if they had some like the beach. It kind of had the feeling of some of the beach blanket bingo moves. Although they even got really goofy towards the end. But like the first one they did with Robert Culp, that had a kind of a serious, not serious, but it was campy, but not like it didn't get goofy yet.
Yeah, no, I always liked these kind of movies, you know, I really did. I wasn't sure what this was. I really wasn't. I didn't know it was an anthology. I asked a friend of mine, did you see this? And he's like, yeah, it's an anthology. I went, oh, yeah, okay, I can dig it.
Anthology movies are good because a lot of the stories that are really good are like short stories, and they can't be made into a full movie without losing something. So if you can do anthologies, your scope of the stories you can use are much broader.
Yeah.
And they generally, they're done without padding, so you get that nice impact.
They're to the point.
Exactly.
They're not like, sometimes the short stories are like kind of like, that's it, that's the ending, but these were okay.
Yeah, these had endings that were satisfactory.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine. I goes, if the movie has cool people that I like, I probably follow it more than even if it has a great story or great directing. To me, it's like about the people in the movie and how they, how they act, and everybody in this movie was pretty damn good.
Yeah, even the goofy one in the middle with the vampire.
That was fine.
Steak-proof vest, but it fit in with the rest of the movie.
Books.
Yeah,
comic
it fit
books.
in. Exactly. It was fine.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever watched Alfred Hitchcock.
Sure.
Those stories and then Twilight Zones. They were like half hours, very concise.
They were on MeTV every night almost.
Okay, there you go. They were concise. The story it got right to the story, no padding, and it was enjoyable. So if you could find a bunch of episodes and then you could kind of link them with an intro and outro.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of thing. So very enjoyable.
Now our next movie is going to be different. It's called Beyond the Valley of the Ultra Vixens. That's a joke. I'm just kidding.
I'll have to watch that when my wife's not around.
That's a joke. I'm just kidding.
Oh, to be honest, I did look at that. I was looking for like movies, and I'm like, Russ Myers. Wait a minute now. Because I know he did
horror movies, or is it horror movies?
Horrible movies. Yeah. He did. What is it?
We did a movie. We did one of his movies, Faster Pussycat.
Oh yeah. Didn't he also do Beyond the Valley of the Dolls?
Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
I watched that movie. It was written by Roger Ebert. It's like
Roger Ebert, the great Roger Ebert. Yeah.
Oof, that movie.
My parents almost took me to see that movie when I was a kid. They didn't know any better, and they thought it was a sequel to Valley of the Dolls. And then when they went to the theater, they found out that it was sold out. And then, they saw it was X-rated, and they said, "Well, we're glad we didn't take you to this." Not that they would have let me in, because I was only like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
So
wow.
That would have been quite a treat to be 12 or 13 and seeing all that.
Yeah.
That would have been a badge of honor. Hey, everybody! I saw Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
Did you ever see it afterwards?
Yeah, sure. I have it. I have it on DVD. Sure.
Oh God, it's horrible.
It's a silly movie too.
Yeah,
it's not
it
that.
Is.
It's whatever. It is what it is. It's typical Russ Meyer.
Yeah.
The ones he did after that are more explicit, but that one was. I think that was his chance for mainstream, acceptance or whatever. But
he blew it.
Yeah. Well, he had a career after. His vision, his double vision was not for mainstream. It was for. It was for guys.
Yeah.
guys who like certain things.
Guys only, yeah.
Yeah. They tried. I mean, he was working his way to the mainstream with Faster Pussycat. People were like, hey, this guy actually can direct a movie with characters, and it's not all, nudity and there's stories and it's stuff. But then when he got that movie, and it was like, what? No,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Oh well. All right. Well, that's it for today. We're gonna cut. I'm gonna cut this off now just to make sure we still have a recording because we had about an hour's worth of technical difficulties because our friends at Microsoft got rid of Skype, and now now we're on Microsoft Teams, and apparently Microsoft Teams does not record conversations, and you have to set up a team meeting, and we couldn't figure it out. So I found a recorder, desktop recorder, very easy, and here we are.
Okay.
Yeah, quite a beginning to this,
Louise.
but we got it done.
All right.
All right. Well, anyway, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. And Roddy,
In the meantime, watch more B movies
you got cut
and
off there.
anthologies.
You got cut off there. Do it again.
Okay. Watch more B movies and anthologies.